Park Beyond, summarized in 2 words, is creatively absurd. It's just rather unfortunate that they forgot the creative part. For a game completely focused on being creative and building unique and interesting theme parks, rides, and sceneries, there is a distinct lack of polish. Fortunately, under all the rubble, there could be a good game. Here's my thoughts on the Park Beyond closed beta. Park Beyond aims to stand out from the crowd through this idea of impossible, taking what is physically possible in the real world and turning that up to 11. One of the best examples of this is how Park Beyond takes thrill rides, or as they call them, flat rides, and lets you level them up to become more and more impossible. A pirate ship ride? Nah, that's not good enough. Let's level that up so the pirate ship breaks apart and spins in different directions. An animatronic octopus? No, we need a real giant octopus. This is definitely one of the most compelling systems of Park Beyond, allowing the player to experience something new without having to build a new ride. Another strength of Park Beyond is the crazy impossible coasters. You can build them incredibly high, incredibly long, and incredibly fast. There's extra modules such as jumps, cannons, off-track sections, so on and so forth, that allow you to take interesting ideas and smoosh them together and create an amazing coaster that's only as wacky as your mind can imagine. When you're creating a coaster, it has this concept of hooks. Hooks are essentially kind of key attraction points that you need to assign to your coasters that you will market towards demographics. These hooks could be something as cool as there's a jump in this coaster, or be as basic as this is a straightforward simple baby coaster. Depending on what you select, then it will become either more or less popular with specific demographics. The game also adds some interesting elements and mechanics in the management side of things, with the addition of demographics, allowing you to build rides, stands, and attractions that are going to be more appealing to certain demographics. Now this one might be a little bit subjective, but I think the game looks pretty good. I am a fan of the cartoony style and the crisp, clear aesthetic that it has going for it. This one's more for you to make your own mind up about. Now on the other side of the coin, this game has a lot of areas where it could really stand to improve, and I would like to see the developers improve before actual launch. One of the key things around this that I particularly didn't like was the idea of realism around these absurdly wacky coasters. Why is it that I can make a coaster go 200 meters in the sky with a straight vertical chain lift and then a straight drop down, only for the coaster to break off at the first turn? Why can I make a coaster that can go into a cannon and shoot out the other side of the cannon, but yet I can't go around a corner too fast? Taking this further, why are all the modules for the coasters, such as things like jumps, cannon shots, so on and so forth, limited to such basic interaction? I want to have a jump that goes up vertically. I want to have a cannon that shoots through the ground. On the management side of things, there are some interesting elements and mechanics, such as the idea of trends, where certain drinks or certain ride types will become more popular for certain demographics at certain times of the year. It is an interesting way to kind of make a little bit of extra profit in your food stores and adds another layer of gameplay dimension there from the management point of view. Overall though, I feel like the management side of things really is quite lacking and it's quite simple and straightforward. There's no shift management. You only really manage employee satisfaction through how much they're paid. There's only really basic mechanics around employee energy with just a employee lounge. There's no way to prioritize. I didn't find any obvious ways to set patrol areas, and overall it seemed quite difficult to be able to actually go in and fine-tune the priority of certain employees. I had a situation where I had 2 mechanics for 6 rides in my park, and one of my most popular rides at that point in time literally catch fire, where my only 2 mechanics were off servicing another ride. It's a situation like this where I would like to be able to prioritize and say, if a ride literally catches fire, please go and look after that, rather than continuing to service this other ride. Another thing around the management of this game is it's not as quite as in-depth as something say like Planet Coaster, such as food and drink gifts. Now this might be a pro or a con to you depending on how much you like to manage your park or how much you like to actually build. Building is where the game personally falls the most flat for me. The construction overall is painful. The controls for construction is painful. I sit there nudging things left and right, and I sit there using the advanced controls and only to toggle back through the advanced controls, and the actual prop that I'm moving teleports back to somewhere else. It's not intuitive. The controls themselves are really slow and don't kind of really correspond with your mouse movements in the game. There's no local transform options, so you can only transform and move things on a global scale. Coaster construction is the worst because they have the most controls around that, with tracks pitching and yawing and moving in all different directions, as well as being very finicky. With the prop side of things, you have a tool called Advanced Move, where in the coasters you don't have that tool, and I would love to see that added there so you can make very small adjustments. Similar to competitors, there's no like a build on or building mode. This is very handy for things such as like food stalls, drink stalls, that sort of stuff, ride entrances and exits. And one of the biggest concerns around all of building is paths. Paths are very glitchy at the moment. I had many instances in cases where paths wouldn't connect to each other. I had paths disappearing. I had paths that changed color midway through, and my lines, my cues for my rides would place the entrance to the queue halfway in the middle of another path. It is not aesthetic at all, and when a game focuses around on being as creative as this game is trying to focus on being creative, it really feels like it detracts from the overall experience of making an interesting park from a visual point of view. The best way I can explain building at this point in time is it is unfinished. On top of all of this, the UI in the game isn't necessarily the best for myself. I found my player experience to be quite lacking with using similar colors or the same colors with the same elements in a different category, but I really struggled to understand where certain things would be intuitively. For example, not like a single ride section. Utility props such as trash cans and seats, they're located in the same menu as shops. And that's not intuitive to me, especially when other utility props such as light posts are also located in the generic props panel. There's a whole story and campaign in this game which I am interested about. The characters didn't hit me straight away. They felt very generic and felt like somebody was like, this one particular character is a cool character and they're extreme, and then there's this other character that's a business character. But it does go with the very cartoony nature of the game, so I can't necessarily fault them on that, although at times I felt the dialogue was a little bit cringy.
Of course, that's mainly because the Area 51 folks keep shooting them down.
My biggest concern is, what does Park Beyond actually add to the conversation of games that are out there at the moment, such as Planet Coaster, such as Parkitect, the original roller coaster tycoon games? The developers would say that Park Beyond is adding the absurdity. It is adding the arcadey nature. It is focusing and trying to fill this more arcadey, more creative niche inside this category of games. But yet, as I mentioned before, I feel like its absurdity is not dialed up to 11. Unfortunately, as it currently stands, I feel that everything else is worse off. There seems to be quite a lot of bugs and performance issues that I would like to see resolved in the final release, obviously. For example, I had a very small park, and yet I was getting 40 FPS. I had issues with things disappearing, paths disappearing, as I showed you before. When I was streaming this, I had a viewer that came in and said, hey, my game weren't even saved, it's glitched out. The good news is this is only a beta, and overall it's not far off. I think if you fix the building controls, fix some of the issues with the aesthetic side of things, with path placement, that sort of stuff, and just give us a few extra options to turn up or down the realism as we kind of see fit, I think the game could be worth a buy. But as it currently stands, if nothing is improved, this won't be a game that I would be playing. Have you played Park Beyond? What are your thoughts on it? Have you ran into the same issues that I've ran into? Leave a comment down below. But for now, thank you very much for watching. If you're wanting to watch more Park Beyond content or games like it, follow me on Twitch. Over here somewhere.